Welcome everyone. Meg James here, your Executive Officer for the Hilton Head Area Home Builders Association. We are back for our second episode of the HBA COVID-19 Information Exchange. And it's simply that, an exchange of information from our members and our community leaders who are experts in several different fields. Today on our call, we have Linda Klingman with HRCoastal. Linda is a human resource and compliance solutions expert. We also have Chris Hervochon with A Better Way CPA, and Chris is our accounting and tax prep expert. So we're really excited to have them on the call. There's a lot of information floating around that I know all of us are trying to just digest and take in and figure out what it all means from an employer standpoint, from an employee standpoint. What information do we need to get together? Which loans or programs or grants are right for us and for your business? So I'm excited to have them on the call. I don't know anything about this. I'm excited to learn from an employer standpoint as well. So without further ado, Linda will kick us off and then we'll segue into Chris. And we've got some questions we can pose that were provided to us ahead of time, but we're just gonna kind of see what happens organically here. And thanks for tuning in, and just remember we're in this together. So Linda, take it away.
Hi. There has been so much information coming out. I think we are all at this point kind of on overload, but I would like to just go over some of the highlights of the Coronavirus Response Act, and then also some of the business concerns that came, the business relief that came out of the CARES Act, which passed last week. So starting with the Response Act, what this does is it allows people to take 2 weeks of paid leave. The reality is that most people do not get paid leave. As a matter of fact, close to 40% of the country does not. And for some people, that means that if they miss 3 days of work, that's the equivalent of their utility bill or their grocery bill for the month. So what they have done is provided a 2-week paid sick leave and also a 10-week paid Family Leave Act. It provides sick leave and extended leave for people who are out of work because of coronavirus, whether they are out because they are sick, because somebody in their family is sick, or because they don't have care for their children. The Paid Sick Leave Act provides for 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 100% of the employee's actual wages. After that, they are entitled to 2/3 of their pay for another 10 weeks based on their wages. However, this applies to businesses that are over 50 employees. If you have fewer than 50 employees, you can be exempt from that. You're going to have to show cause for that. I do have to say, though, that so many things haven't been worked out yet. Things like what kind of proof you're going to have to show so that they know whether or not you have been affected by this.
All right. We're going to start with Chris. Chris, take it away.
Thank you so much, Megan. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today. I am a CPA. I am here locally, located in Bluffton, but we do have a distributed team. So I've got one full-timer down in Hinesville, Georgia, one part-time, or actually 2 part-timers here locally now. So we do work distributedly. So we are familiar with this kind of format. But anyway, things are very, very uncertain lately. Not just the coronavirus, but everything around it and conducting business too. So we've got a client playbook that we're kind of telling clients to follow. And here's what it is. Step number 1, talk to your clients and then ask them these five questions. Number 1, how are you doing personally? How is your family doing? Number 2, what are your clients saying? And then this is kind of meant to take the temperature of how your clients are feeling, what their financial situation's like, what their outlook is, generally speaking, as we kind of go through this process, because it is unprecedented. Number 3, what opportunities are you taking advantage of during the crisis? Number 4, what opportunities are you seeing after the crisis? And then number 5, how can we help? So that's what you should be saying to your clients. All of that is meant to, 1, take the temperature of your clients, but then it's also going to give you an idea of what your revenue is going to look like going forward, when you can expect to collect receivables, whether or not you can expect new business, things like that. And that's going to be important later when we start talking about cash flow, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. Step 2, talk to your vendors. Ask them, how are you doing personally? How is your family doing? Just like your clients, right? These are personal relationships. Number 2, what opportunities are you thinking about on the other side of the crisis? That's going to give you some idea about what opportunities are going to be available for your business. Combine these two things, the conversations that you're having with your vendors, the conversations that you're having with your clients. It's going to give you a much better idea of what your business is going to look like on the other side of this, and then what you can do with your downtime, if any, to upskill your business during this time. Now, the final question is, can we adjust our payment terms with the vendor? The idea is you want to defer as much expense and as much cash outflow as possible. And, you know, it might get to the point where you might say, hey, look, we need to look for a new vendor. That's a possibility, something to think about. Okay, so those are the first 2 steps. Step number 3, forecast your cash flow. Do it by day. So from now through the end of July, we're telling everybody to prep through July from a personal and business finance perspective. Hopefully we're done with this sooner than that, but worst case scenario, forecast it through July, and forecast it 2 different ways. Forecast it with an optimistic perspective. So what's the best case? And forecast it with a pessimistic perspective. What's the worst case? Hopefully you're going to find, you know, reality is going to be somewhere in the middle there, but at least you kind of know what to expect. And in the worst case scenario, if it doesn't make you uncomfortable what the result is, you probably haven't made it pessimistic enough. So just give yourself kind of that idea. What the forecast is going to do, and if anybody wants a template, I've got one. You can just shoot me an email, Chris@BetterWayCPA, and I'll also give it to Meg to forecast the cash flow. But what that's going to provide is it's going to tell you, hey, this is where we expect and when we expect cash to come in. This is where we expect cash to go and when we expect it to go out. And this is where the shortfalls are going to happen. So by day, okay? So it could be April 15th, look, we've got a negative cash balance. What we need to do is we need to kind of pull revenue and cash, you know, forward as much as we can by reaching out to our clients or trying to sell new business, or we need to defer expenses past that April 15th date so that we have more cash sitting in the bank. Okay, easy enough. That's going to tell you, hey, this is what we need to do with employees, whether or not we need to furlough them or not, whether or not we need to go out and get loans. That's going to inform all of those decisions, okay? The next thing that we're telling folks to do is apply for the PPP loan. The PPP loan is affectionately referred to as the SBA 7A loan, which is kind of just a revamp of the existing 7A SBA loans that are already available. They're already out there in the marketplace. Here's the thing with that, and there's 2 different types of loans that kind of came with this stimulus package. The PPP loan is you take your average salary cost or average wages for the preceding 12 months, average monthly cost, multiply it by 2.5. That's the size of the loan that you can theoretically be eligible for. There's only one input, wages, okay? There are 4 outputs that you can spend that money on and then get possible 100% forgiveness. Those are wages, mortgage, rent, utilities. Those are the 4 things. Mortgage, rent, utilities, those are going to be applicable to business locations. That's not like your personal residence. That's going to be your business location if you have an office or something like that. Same thing with rent. The SBA just came out with guidance this morning, so Wednesday the 1st, that says that 75% of that forgiveness needs to come from wages. So if you're in a business that has really high rent costs or really high utilities costs, you might want to be thinking perhaps about the EIDL loan. The EIDL loan is the Economic Impact Disaster Loss Loan. Now, with the EIDL loan, the pot of money is only $7.5 billion that the government has allocated, whereas the PPP is $350 billion. So theoretically, the EIDL loan is going to get used up faster. So you might want to think about applying for that faster, but you know that's kind of changing, as is everything. The EIDL loan you've got to apply for, you've got to ask for a dollar amount. They're going to ask for a personal guarantee, and they're also going to ask for collateral. Okay, so they're going to be underwritten. So it's a little bit harder to get that loan. The pool of money is smaller, but you have more opportunity as far as how you can spend it. The thing is, it's not going to be forgiven like the PPP loan is. So these are very different programs. The PPP loan, I heard this morning that there are substantial sums of loans that are just kind of out there waiting to be granted. So the concern that I have now is that those loans are going to be used up rather quickly. You probably want to, whatever you're going to do as far as a loan, you probably want to apply for that sooner than later. The applications are online. You can find them. For the PPP loan, there is no electronic means to apply for those loans yet. It's going to be bank by bank. So you should reach out to your banker. Now is not the time to go change banks. If you have a friendship with an existing banker, you should definitely be reaching out to them, sending them flowers or something, because that's a good idea. But they're going to help you through this, and they're going to have they are going to be the ultimate authority on whether or not you get the loan, how much the loan is going to be, and how you can interpret the dollar amounts that you're going to be able to get. So these are just kind of generalities, but that's where I'm telling clients to start. You're probably going to want the PPP loan unless you're sitting in a business that has super high rent or super high utilities, especially relative to the wage cost. It's going to be different for everybody. If anybody ever needs help, by all means reach out. But that's kind of where we are with that. Now, that's the CARES Act. The FCRA, which is the Families Coronavirus Relief Act. Sorry if I butchered that, Linda, please correct me. There are things in there that are different. That is probably more employee focused. My understanding is that you can get basically 12 weeks of paid leave for an employee when you stack sick leave and family leave on top of each other, sick leave being the first 2, family leave being the next 10, and that those are going to be immediate tax credits paid back to the employer, so that there's no real economic hit to the employer. But what I'm hearing from the payroll providers is that there is really no mechanism for that to actually happen yet. They're working on it. It's not like everything else that's involved here. It's not fully baked. It's just a process. So definitely reach out to your payroll provider. But I am by no means the expert on the rest of those 2 laws. So I'll kind of let Linda take it away, and please correct me where I was wrong and when I was wrong.
No, you did fine there, Chris. I'd like to step back a little bit from the laws and just talk about how we're handling this. I agree with Chris. You have to keep checking with your vendors and your suppliers, see how they're doing. But a lot of people are now teleworking as well. And this is a new and exciting situation for everyone. I want to remind you that if you don't have small kids at home, many people are working at home, right, Chris? With little ones.
Sometimes many little ones.
It's a very challenging situation because people who are working for you have to fill 3 roles. Number 1, they're working for you. Number 2, they're trying to homeschool their kids. And number 3, they're trying to keep the kids occupied in other ways as well. We all have to kind of just go with the flow. As so many people say, we're all in it together. One thing you want to do is make sure that you're checking in with your folks, somehow having meetings with them, have a time that everybody can get on a Zoom conference or something, so that people have a chance to see one another. It's really an important thing. Going more into the legal part of it, I also want to let you know that there are posters that are available that you're supposed to hang up in your workplace as of, I think as of yesterday. I will make sure that Meg gets copies of those, and then you can just hang them. They have to do with the FFCRA telling people that they do have the 2 weeks paid leave and the 10 weeks extended leave at 2/3 of their pay. Some of the other things you want to worry about are what are you going to do if people get sick? If you people are in the office, there are some things that you have to do as well. You want to make sure that people are absolutely safe distancing them from themselves from other people at work. You want to make sure that you are cleaning down surfaces daily, but then also having the opportunity for people to use wipes, Clorox, or whatever it is, to go over phones and keyboards, things like that on a regular basis. so that people stay healthy at work. If you find that one person has been exposed, this is where it gets tricky. If you find out that somebody has been exposed, you should be sending that person home. But before you do that, check to see who they have been in close contact with over the past 14 days at work, whether it's their coworkers who have been close to them physically, or a vendor or a supplier, anybody like that, because then you have to inform those people that they need to also self-isolate. It's getting to be a really tricky situation. I just saw that there are now 15% of the New York Police Department, for example, who will have been exposed and they are off the job. If somebody has been exposed, they need to get out of the workplace. So anybody who's been exposed or also has found out that they have been tested and they are ill, absolutely you need to find out who else dealt with that person, and they need to be taken out of the workplace as well.
Hey, Linda, one of the questions that I'm getting from my clients who are business owners is, what can I do for my employees who are struggling? And I think that's a different answer from an HR perspective, because I've got an answer from a tax and a finance perspective. But I'm curious, what's the HR perspective?
Everybody's struggling right now. There's no question about that. I mean, we're in strange times. The best thing you can do is, as an employer, is keep checking in with people. Just let them know that you're out there and find out what their struggles are. An example would be somebody who has a couple of kids who are in school. Maybe they only have one computer at home, and the kids have to do schoolwork, and mom and dad need the computer for work as well. So you have to kind of figure out different ways that you can handle things. For example, if they do work that might be able to be done at a different time, maybe they're not working during the 8 to 5 hours, except for a specific period of time when everybody is working, a core time. Let's say 12 to 2, everybody is available to be on the computer with one another for a work situation, but then they can do the rest of their work maybe in the evening when the kids are maybe watching TV at that point. The kids are able to go out and play in the yard or something. Then they can get their own work done. There are a lot of ways that people are struggling. Try to find out what they are. That's part of being a leader, is just checking in with people. So see what you can do from that perspective as well.
From a financial perspective, one of the questions I got was, well, can I just give my employees like some cash just so that they can kind of like get through? And it's like, well, yeah, you can, but that's a gift to the employees and it's going to be taxable, or it's not technically a gift, but it's going to be taxable income for the employees. Right. So one of the things that you can think about, and this has never ever been used, but it's a tax law that goes back to 2002, which was in response to September 11th. It's section 139. Where basically you can pay for employee expenses in a time of hardship that are not otherwise covered by insurance. You know, if they're having, if they're struggling with their mortgage, or if you need, like you just said, setting them up with remote work, if they need help getting set up with remote work, if they just don't have the technology at home or the resources at home to do that, as an employer, you can take that section 139 expense, give them those funds, get them set up in that way, and then that's a deduction on the business side. So that's something that's not really well known. But it is out there, but you do just need to be careful with how much you're giving employees and when you're giving it to them, because in general, the law, the rule is $25 is the max that you can give an employee for a gift. Anything above that's taxable income to them, with the exception, this loophole, section 139, that's a way around that.
That's good information, Chris. On this particular loophole, what is the maximum that you can allow for your employees?
There is no maximum, but it does need to be reasonable.
Reasonable, okay.
Yeah.
I actually have heard from a couple of employers who their people are now working from home, and so they gave them an allowance and said, go out and buy whatever you need that would help make your time at home a little bit more comfortable, let's just say. And I guess they're going to be using that particular aspect. Always, folks, you want to check with your accountant. Make sure that whoever's taking care of your books can help you through those kinds of things.
Absolutely. It's always better to send a 2-second email to your CPA or your accountant and ask the question before you go run off willy-nilly and and move funds around and start spending money and giving money and things like that. It's always better to just send a 2-second email and try to get that response.
Right.
The other thing I'll mention there, it's also a good, if you don't have an accountable plan, which basically is the reimbursement structure in your business. If you don't have an accountable plan, it's a good year to put one of those in place, for unreimbursed employee expenses, because it makes it easier for the employee financially, number one. Then number two, it also creates less taxable income, on the business side. So it's a benefit for both sides. Look at Section 139. Make sure you have an accountable plan in place. Make sure the accountable plan makes sense. Make sure that it's, because in a lot of cases, the plans are outdated or they're old. You put them in place when you set up the business, and you haven't looked at them in years, and you could wake up and realize that you just don't operate that way anymore. So now's a good time. You're gonna have some downtime. Take a look at your accountable plan. Make sure it makes sense for your business.
That's a good idea. Another thing you might want to consider is the governor just closed all non-essential businesses yesterday, as of 5 o'clock today. And many people are still working. You might want to make sure that you have some kind of a note on letterhead stating that your employees who are out and about are members of an essential business. It would be good for them to have that just in case they're stopped. Chances are they're not going to be stopped unless they're out, on a sandbar somewhere. Then somebody might ask a question. But just have that letter in the car with them, or in the car or in the truck, stating that they're working with an essential business.
And actually, Linda, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. The HBA, hopefully it should be in everybody's inbox shortly, received a template from NAHB that can easily be customized by our individual members. So it gives them that platform to start with. And it is a good thing, even though we don't have a true shelter in place mandate going on right now. It's still good for everyone to have that letter in all of their work vehicles. And so we have a template that the members can use, and it will be included as an attachment to this. So good point.
And Meg, I think so you had a few questions that had come up. Is there anything you'd like to ask of us about?
Yes, I think these are kind of specific, so they may not have long answers. And I feel like you touched on some of them, but the one I'll start with is, if my employer closed my work site before April 1st, the effective date of the FFCRA, can I still get paid sick leave or expanded family and medical leave?
If your employer did close early, no, you cannot get the extended sick leave or medical leave. However, under the CARES Act, you will be, obviously, you'll be eligible for unemployment, plus you will be getting an extra $600 a week from March 27th up through August 31st for anybody who is on unemployment. As a matter of fact, in some cases, people will be getting more unemployment than they would actually make in their check. But no, they will not get the sick or the extended leave. They will get unemployment plus a premium on top of that weekly.
Okay. Hey, Linda, can I ask a question on that?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Okay. So my understanding of South Carolina unemployment is that to calculate the maximum benefit, it's the average hourly wage across the state times 2/3 times 40 hours for the week.
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
I do not know what the maximum is in South Carolina. I should know that, but I don't. I will tell you that it goes from, it depends on your state. I mean, in Alabama, it's 175, and in New Jersey, it's 713. I think we're somewhere in the 300s. But in addition to that, there would be either a second check for $600 every week, or depending on what the state decides, it might come in one particular check.
Yep.
You might get one or two checks weekly.
Yeah, and I think that's something to think about, especially when you're thinking about the various loan programs, because you want to do right by the employees in this situation. So if you can get an employee a bigger check, I think that's a good thing. But you have to think about that in the context of the loan forgiveness for the PPP loan if you get one, because you've got to pay, 75% of the forgiveness is going to be based on the wages that you pay 8 weeks after the date of the loan. So if you start to put people on unemployment because they're going to get more money, you've got to realize that that's also going to impact the amount of forgiveness potentially, depending on how long you have them on unemployment and whether or not they come back and things like that. So there's a lot of moving pieces that you need to consider together. And for some of that, it's going to depend on the cash flow analysis that you do, because if you just can't get there to a point where your cash doesn't become a problem, between now and July, then you got to start looking at expenses that are unnecessary. And if you do that, you cut everything that you can, and you still can't get there to a good cash position, then you probably have to look at the unemployment route, and hopefully your employees make out better that way too. So that's kind of a win-win, but you also have to realize that, maybe they don't come back. So the trained workforce is the biggest asset in any business, and you have to factor all of those things together. How's it going to be for the employee? What's your cash flow going to look like? And then what's your business going to look like, or what can it look like or not after that period of time?
And this isn't a question that was received, but I know a lot of our members are 1099 employees, and there's confusion with, or I mean, even a lot of hairdressers, and they've just now been. How does that work with unemployment, or maybe what are your suggestions for where they can start and that they do qualify?
If somebody is a 1099 or if they are self-employed, generally they are not eligible. In fact, they aren't eligible usually for unemployment. However, with the CARES Act, they are going to be eligible. They will be able to get a portion of the unemployment the state offers, and they will still get the $600 premium as well.
And that's a really interesting question from the loan and tax perspective as well, because a lot of those 1099 workers are Schedule C tax filers. So how do you know that? Well, look at your tax return from 2018. Hopefully you filed one. And if there's a Schedule C in there, that's your business income and business expenses. Otherwise, if you filed a separate tax return, it might be you're an S Corp or C Corp or a partnership, whatever. Let's just assume for now that you're a Schedule C person. Those folks are going to be eligible for the PPP loans. And the way that you would calculate the amount that you're eligible for, it's not necessarily going to be the wages that you pay out, because if it's just you in a business and you're working as a subcontractor, you may not have any employees. It might just be you, and you're getting paid with a 1099. So you would take the average profit or loss from the business for the trailing 12 months prior to the loan date. So today is April 1st. You're going to go back 12 months from today. What is the average monthly net income that you're getting from that business? Multiply that by 2.5. That's how much you'd be eligible for the PPP. So you need to factor in there the PPP loan, then also the fact that you may be able to get unemployment too. Same sort of analysis you need to work through.
I think that'll be reassuring to a lot of our members for sure. So another one, and I think this is a tough one. So if I'm at home with my child because his or her school or place of care is closed, or child care provider is unavailable, do I get paid sick leave, expanded family and medical leave, one or the other, or both? How do they interact? And how does that work if the place of business doesn't allow them to work from home? What are their options?
Okay, that's one of those depends questions. It depends. If they are able to work from home and the employer allows it, then they would be eligible in the same way. However, if they are home and they're not working, then they are eligible for both the sick leave and for the extended family leave benefit.
Okay. And then I think this one kind of follows it. What records do I, as an employer, need to keep when my employee takes paid sick leave or expanded family and medical leave?
You should have some kind of a record, just like you would if you were doing FMLA. What it can be is anything like a government notice saying that the schools had to be closed, or an email from the daycare saying we have to close down now. Any kind of a document that says that wherever the children were going to school or being cared for is now closed. So they need to have that in their own records. And then they also need to make sure that they're keeping records of what they're paying out, of course, for the accounting aspect of it. They also, well, no, I'll just let that go because I'll leave that up for Chris. Okay, that's all I have on that one.
Yeah, I think that's helpful too to know, just because we've got, there's always two sides, right? There's some folks who it's been alluded to, are maybe trying to milk the system. I don't know if that's really true, but especially in an industry where we are considered essential and we are able to continue working. I've heard a couple employers just have that fear that that's what their employees are trying to do. So I think what you just stated was helpful. Okay.
They absolutely have to be able to document that their kids are out of school. I mean,
and that wouldn't be hard. But
that's
also
not difficult.
daycare was a good comment, just that it's okay for them to ask for those documents and to ask for that information. And I think it all kind of comes back to what Chris was saying in the beginning, to talk to your clients, talk to your vendors, talk to your employees. How are you doing? Let's just all start there. I think
another suggestion about the schools is if you just pull up an article from the newspaper that says the schools are closed. That's all they need to have on hand, those kinds of things.
Okay.
The general sense that I'm getting from all of these various programs and all of these various agencies and things like that is that they're going to be fairly liberal during this time as far as the documentation and just how deep they're going to dig when they're, auditing these claims and loans and things like that. I would be very, very surprised if something like that turned into a problem.
We're in difficult times right now. Sure, there are always going to be people who are trying to game the system, but I think right now everybody needs whatever help they can get, generally speaking.
I think those were really the only questions I have. Do you guys have final thoughts, or is there anything we may have missed talking about? Just something simple. Is there a difference between laying off employees versus furloughing? I think a lot of what we talked about, it sounds like these guys need to have a conversation with their CPA, their accountant, their business coach, whoever, the first thing is to look at the cash flow, start there, where are you at, and then kind of figure out which of these options are right for you. But with the as an employer, is there what's the difference between furlough, laying off, and how can someone kind of navigate what the best decision is for their situation?
Well, a furlough is generally thought of as a temporary layoff. If you say a layoff, that can be taken either way. There are temporary layoffs or permanent layoffs. We're hoping that all of these will be temporary layoffs, and we'll be able to bring those people back into the workforce as quickly as we can. If these people know your business and they are skilled and they have a history with you, you certainly want to bring them back as soon as you're able to do that.
Cool. Do you guys have any final thoughts to share? If you want to share your websites again too, where you guys are getting your resources. We created a COVID-19 tab on the HBA page under member resources. We were using our building industry news tab, but now we've got a separate one since there's a lot of different information going out that's not just building department related. So we'll certainly share both of your resources there as well. But if there's any ones that you guys are always tuned into checking, because I think some of the mental health suggestions I've heard are don't listen to the news. Pick your sources, check them 1 to 2 times a day, and just let that be it. So I'm curious what your guys's are.
I absolutely agree with that. As a 9/11 survivor, you have to get yourself away from the news. And I would recommend that you tune in, let's say, no later than 7, because it tends to weigh on you during the night if you're not doing that. It's a good idea to make sure that you're trying to maintain some kind of a balance I know everybody says it, but if you're not getting outside, make sure that you do. Make sure that you're getting some kind of exercise so that you're relieving some of the stress. If you have kids, get them out, let them ride their bikes, and you go on a walk with them, that kind of thing. If your family's not too big, the police won't stop you and say, why are there more than 3 people together? But no, seriously, just try to maintain as well as you can. And keep tabs on your own mental health. Make sure that you're not, number one, you're not drinking too much, that you're not moving to recreational drugs, because things are a little bit different now when you're spending more time at home. This is really a good time to get reacquainted with your family and just slow down a little bit. It's kind of a wake-up call for us. It's not a good wake-up call, but it's out there. I would like to also say that I have put together probably over 10 PowerPoint presentations on different aspects of either the law or how to telework, things of that nature. I'll send them all along to Meg, and I will also send along those posters that you're supposed to put up in the workplace. They have to do with the paid leave and the extended family leave as well.
I had a question about that. If you're not opting into the programs, do you still need to display those posters?
We haven't gotten total guidance on this. There's not total guidance on just about anything right now. I'm getting hit with webinars daily from legal firms trying to keep up with things. But just to be on the safe side, I would post it.
Okay.
Seems like everything's half-baked these days.
True. All right. Chris, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I kind of cover that PPP loan forgiveness really, really well so that we're really, really clear. So if you get the loan, on the loan date, the forgiveness is based on the expenses that you incur in the 8 weeks following that loan date. So the expenses are going to be broken down into 4 categories. Number 1 is wages, and 75% of the total expenses for the forgiveness portion of it need to go there. The other things are rent, mortgage, and utilities, and those are going to be associated with a business location, not a personal location. So that's one piece. The other piece, the advice that we're given to our clients is take this time to upskill your business. Learn a new skill, have your employees learn a new skill if you're going to keep them on and if they're not going to be terribly busy. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to use some downtime that we always hear, well, we don't have enough time for that. We don't have enough time to implement this process. We don't have enough time to implement this procedure. We don't have enough time to implement this new piece of software. Now's the perfect time for that, to upskill your business so that your business is in a better spot on the way out of this than on the way in. So that's one. Number 2 is maintain and maximize cash as best as you can and plan for it to go through July. Be forecasting cash flow starting today, and then do it at least once a week because things are changing very, very fast. And then the other thing is there is a lot of information, and Linda alluded to this, all over the place about all different facets of the various laws that have been passed. My expectation is that there are going to be probably 1 or 2 more that get passed between now and probably June-ish. So those, are coming and things are probably going to change. But you can't just take the articles that you read in the Wall Street Journal and Forbes and the local paper, put it all together, and then, oh, this is how I should operate. No, I would not do that. At the very least, I would probably go read the actual sections of the law. It's out there. It is a super long bill. It's like 880 pages for the CARES Act alone. They're super long, but you can read the specific pieces relative to those specific loans, and you can get an understanding. Then go talk to your CPA who has spent a bunch of time, probably in the last 5 or 6 days, or 2 weeks for that matter, going through this, talking to other CPAs like we have, and trying to figure out exactly what the best practices are, what everybody else thinks, and kind of getting a good idea. And then go from there. Don't necessarily just go based on the article that you read in Forbes. Okay, because somebody wrote that who's probably not a CPA, who probably didn't even read the law, and they're extrapolating too, right? These things are moving very, very fast. And then other than that, just realize that when you go to apply for some of these loans, the bank itself is going to have final say. And if you can help it at all, go with a bank where you have a relationship already, And if that doesn't work, then try to find a bank where they are going to have an online portal, something that's automated on the front end to get your loan in the queue. Because otherwise, some of these banks are really far behind. They don't have a process. And, my fear is that they're not going to be able to service the demand. And then that pot of money is going to run out because there's already at least $70 billion sitting there waiting to get allocated. That's 20% of the whole pot. And, that's going to go faster than you can probably shake a stick at. So, just be proactive, forecast your cash flow, talk to your clients, talk to your vendors, and, see where that gets you. And then other than that, our website is betterwaycpa.com. We've got a blog post on there that kind of talks about the various things that you should be doing during this period of time. And I'll send over the cash flow forecast template to Meg. There's going to be a tab in there that has directions on how to use it. But if you ever need any help, just reach out to us. We're happy to help. And, this is very much a karma experience for us. We're just trying to give away as much information and as much help as we can through this period of time without necessarily, charging people for it. So we're just here to help.
Agreed. I just wanted to add that you might want to sit down and read the bill, as Chris has suggested certain sections. If you're not into that, what I have used also is the Department of Labor has a website that kind of condenses things, and that it's going to be accurate up to that particular time because it is coming from the Department of Labor. And Chris, I won't hold it against you that you are saying all those things about Forbes, even though my son-in-law is one of the editors.
I'm not, nothing against Forbes, not even a little bit.
I know exactly what you're saying. No, that makes sense. I also wanted to say that I have a YouTube channel that I'm just starting to make sure that all of the information gets out on. So you could check the HRCoastal YouTube channel, check my website, and as I said, I'll also send those documents along to Meg so that they can go out on the HBA site.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was really great. And everybody stay safe, sane, stay in touch.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.